If you love getting good news, then listen up because I'm about to tell you about all the best stuff Netflix is adding in August 2024, and it is a ton of stuff, including a handful of brand new Netflix original movies. One of them stars Halle Berry and Mark Wahlberg. They're also adding a ton of shows from AMC, like Gangs of London, Joe Rogan's new live comedy special, the brand new animated Terminator series, and a lot more. Thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video. Before talking about them and all the new stuff, I do want to tell you about some of the older movies that they're adding on August 1st, where they're adding Godzilla -1 minus color. This is the black and white version of Godzilla -1, which is pretty cool that it's coming to Netflix. This would normally be like a DVD extra type thing, but with the original obviously being in black and white and this new version from Japan being kind of like a throwback Godzilla movie with modern special effects, it's very appropriate. I'm at least gonna watch it once in black and white. They're also adding Fury, a just unbelievably badass movie. This one holds up incredibly well. I've seen it a few times, and every time I've been surprised at how much I've liked it. It's far from a perfect movie, but definitely an exciting, action-packed World War II movie. Another action-packed Brad Pitt flick is World War Z. Not my favorite zombie movie, mainly just because it's PG-13 and it literally has a lot of the teeth removed from it, but still an epic zombie flick with some fantastic moments in it, no doubt. Same goes for Star Trek Beyond. Kind of an awesome movie with some great moments. It's just not glued together as well as like a classic Star Trek flick. Tarot is a horror flick from 2024. Not one with great reviews. There definitely have been some fantastic ones released in 2024 so far, but you know, it's a new one. It'll likely make it into Netflix's top 10. For some sequels, they're going to be adding Red and Red 2. Red stands for Retired, Extremely Dangerous. You've got a bunch of old folks like Morgan Freeman, John Malkovich, and Helen Mirren, who is still like a smoke show in these movies. They're based on comic books, and they're fun for what they are. Same goes for Jack Reacher. Like, these are based on books, not comic books, but they're fun for what they are, even though Tom Cruise is way smaller than Jack Reacher was supposed to be. If nothing else, the first Jack Reacher has Werner Herzog as a villain, which is kind of wacky and cool to see. A movie that's far from wacky and cool is Room, starring Brie Larson. This is actually a pretty upsetting movie, but one that's just very well done. She plays a woman who was kidnapped and held captive in a small room in this total creep's backyard. She bears a son in this little room, and the movie's really about his point of view. He's raised in this room. It's the only thing that he knows. It's very touching stuff, but also pretty difficult to watch more than once. This Spectacular Now is a touching teen romance comedy from Studio A24, and it's one of their earlier movies. It stars Miles Teller and Shailene Woodley, and really launched both of their careers kind of suddenly. Also on August 1st, they're adding a new teen drama series from the BBC titled A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This actually stars one of the girls from Wednesday, and even though it's not a Netflix original, it's hit Netflix pretty quickly here. And it's actually a teen murder mystery series, so if you're into that sort of thing, this actually looks like a top-notch production. Also on the 1st, Unstable comes back for season 2. This is the new comedy series starring Rob Lowe, where he's running like a startup company. Rob Lowe's even narrating a documentary about dogs coming out later in the month. They're adding a huge Chucky movie collection, like a long list of Chucky movies. To me, after the first one, they kind of start to become one and the same, and Jennifer Tilly is actually pretty excellent in these, but they are kind of wacky and weird. And then for some family-friendly movies, they're adding the animated movie Monster House, which still has like a stunning look to it, and because they've got to add an Adam Sandler movie every single month, it seems, they're adding back Mr. Deeds.
You're sick! You're sick! Why would you do that to me? I'm just kidding you, pal.
Now, before we get to all the new stuff Netflix is adding throughout the month in chronological order, down in the comments, I've noticed that some of you have noticed that I've been beefing up over the past year or so, and I've been doing it with the help of today's sponsor, Factor. And that's because Factor takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success. You can skip grocery stores, prep work, cooking, cleanup, the whole headache. You can skip it. And instead, you can get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered straight to your door. And you get to choose from up to 35 different meals every single week, and they include options like keto, vegan and veggie, calorie smart, and more. And these chef-prepared meals are ready to plate in 2 minutes. You literally just pop them in the microwave and they're ready to go, and I gotta say, these meals are absolutely delicious. I sign up for the Protein Plus plan, and these meals feature huge chunks of meat, large chicken breasts. They even have upgrades like filet mignon, often covered in sauces with some veggies that all microwave incredibly well. And these are all high protein meals with typically 30 to 40 grams of protein per serving. My wife and I both love the sun-dried tomato chicken. They even have a variety of different chili bowls, and they're all delicious. Consider skipping overpriced takeout. Factor is cheaper and healthier. Head over to factor75.com or use the link in the video description below and use my code FlickConnection50. You're gonna save 50% off your first box with Factor, plus 20% off your next month of orders with Factor. It's been so helpful having meals like this that are healthy and packed with protein, just stacked and ready to go in my fridge. I love having Factor in the fridge. So again, to get 50% off your first box with Factor, go to factor75.com or use the link in the description. Use my code FlickConnection50. You're not only gonna save 50%, you're also gonna save 20 off your next month of Factor. It's a great deal, but speaking of great stuff, let's get back to all the new stuff Netflix is adding this month. On August 2nd, they're already adding director's cuts of Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2. As far as I can tell, Netflix lets directors do what they want for the most part. They don't seem to interfere a whole lot, which is why these movies probably weren't very good to begin with. Now, the director's cut trailer does look like there's quite a bit more violence, or at least a lot more blood than the original version, and possibly some sex, but I mean, you're still dealing with the same story, and so I'm confused as to why even bother with these. Why not just make the director's cut the original one you put out? This just isn't making sense to me on Netflix. But who knows, maybe he was able to make him better based on some of the criticism these movies received. Safe to say, I don't think I'll be watching them, but I will be watching Save Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie. This is a new animated SpongeBob movie. Don't get me wrong, I will not be watching this by myself. I'll definitely be checking out with the kids, but it looks like a fun watch with them. On the 3rd, Joe Rogan has a brand new live comedy special titled Burn the Boats. This is gonna be broadcast live from his comedy club in Austin, Texas, the Comedy Mothership. And given the fact that it's live and the current state of the world, there's likely gonna be quite a bit of material on, the current state of the world. On August 6th, they add a sci-fi movie that I really wanted to like, starring Hugh Jackman and Rebecca Ferguson. Reminiscence is actually a pretty visually stunning science fiction movie. It takes place in the near future, but it is much more of a romance movie. In fact, I think the plot gets a little bit lost in the sauce. It kind of sells itself as this big, almost Christopher Nolan-esque sci-fi thing, and even though it kind of looks like one, it really isn't at the core story. But if you're in the mood for something really kind of sappy and romantic, then Reminiscence is definitely that. August 7th adds Love is Blind, the UK. This will actually have multiple episodes air each week over the course of 3 weeks. And then also on the 7th, and also from the UK, we've got The Secret World of Sound with David Attenborough. This is only 3 episodes long, but it takes a look at how different animals use sound to communicate and find prey, things like that. On the 8th, the hit science fiction show The Umbrella Academy returns for its 4th and its final season. And then on the 9th, we've got something for dog lovers, Inside the Mind of a Dog, narrated by Rob Lowe. You'll remember he had another dog-related movie on Netflix titled Dog Gone. That's likely why he's narrating this, but it takes a look at the history of dogs and kind of the science behind them and their evolution, likely going into how they evolved from wolves, the various breeds, and the science behind their brains, things like that. On the 11th, they're adding Night School, starring Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish, probably the only Kevin Hart or Tiffany Haddish movie I actually haven't seen. For some more laughs, on the 13th, they're adding a new Matt Rife comedy special, but this one is a crowd work special. Matt Rife isn't the only comic known for crowd work, but he is really known for crowd work, so this one should be interesting, even though he took a lot of flack for his last one. Still, I appreciate that Netflix is pumping out these specials without a whole lot of oversight. On the 14th, they're adding a spin-off of Worst Roommate Ever, a crazy popular show on Netflix. This one is titled Worst Ex Ever. And then the 16th is going to be a doozy of a day. They're adding First Man, starring Ryan Gosling. This is one I definitely need to see again. It did not meet my expectations. I was thinking it was going to be closer to something like The Right Stuff. It's from the director of Whiplash, and I expected a lot more energy from this movie and didn't get it. It's a lot more about his feelings and the way he was thinking about leaving his family to go into space. I mean, heavy stuff. I love him. I love the director and the story. I love everything about it. I just was not a fan of the delivery, but I think that has a lot more to do with my incorrect expectations. But for horror fans, they're adding Pearl. This is the middle movie, I guess, or the prequel to the Ty West trilogy, or I guess Mia Goth Ty West trilogy. In that trilogy, we've got X, we've got Pearl, and currently in theaters, Maxine. Pearl came out in the middle, but it is the prequel to X, and then Maxine is, I guess, the finale? Who knows? We might get more out of the series. But if you haven't seen Pearl, it's just, it's a wild one. I mean, it's got classic horror vibes, but also some bizarrely funny elements in it as well, very much like X. Then for a brand new action comedy, they're adding The Union. This actually stars Halle Berry and Mark Wahlberg.
Okay, here we go.
All right, yeah, he's dead.
They play high school sweethearts. She is like a weird spy. You can kind of tell by her haircut. But she recruits him, just a regular construction worker, to go on like a mission. Sounds like a dopey setup, and the look of the movie looks very much like a made-for-TV movie. I'll even say some of the lines in the trailer are not very good at all, but it does look action-packed. Like, it looks like there's a lot more action in this than you typically get from an action comedy on Netflix, and what's not to love about Halle Berry, so this is one I'm definitely checking out. And then if that's not enough for you, on the 16th, they're also adding several seasons of The Venture Brothers. Now, this is an old Adult Swim show, but it's kind of loosely based on like Johnny Quest, and it's really funny as a result. If you love binge watching shows, on the 19th, Netflix is dropping a bomb. They are adding a massive list of AMC shows. We're going to talk about just a few of them, but here's the full list. I am partial to Preacher and Into the Badlands. My wife actually loved Anne Rice's The Mayfair Witches. But they're also adding 8 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead and the new spin-off of The Walking Dead titled Daryl Dixon. They're also going to be adding my absolute favorite titled Gangs of London. There's 2 seasons of that, but that does not get added until the 31st. I'll tell you about it in a couple minutes. Also on the 19th, the same day as all of those amazing AMC shows, they're going to be adding Migration. This is a stunning animated movie from Illumination, the same studio behind Minions, Despicable Me, and the Super Mario Brothers movie. It's actually about a family of ducks migrating, imagine that. But it's got just a beautiful look to it. There's nothing mind-blowing with the story. It's pretty typical family-friendly stuff, but just another beautiful movie from Illumination, a studio that spends way less money than Pixar or DreamWorks. If you like the idea of never running out of good movies to watch again, definitely consider clicking the subscribe button, maybe even leave a like or a comment. All those are great ways to let the YouTube algorithm know you'd like to see more content like this again in the future. Then on the 21st, they're adding a very interesting documentary on Wyatt Earp. It's actually titled Wyatt Earp and the Cowboy War. This story actually begins at the shootout at the OK Corral and then goes into kind of a wild story. Now, it's set up like a documentary with interviews with historians, but there's a fair amount of reenactments in this, and it's also narrated by Ed Harris. The next day, on the 22nd, they're adding a documentary titled The Secret Life of Orangutans. This should appeal to people who loved Chimp Empire. However, my guess is it's not going to be nearly as dramatic as a story as Chimp Empire. Then on the 23rd, there's a new irreverent rated-R teen comedy titled Incoming. This is about a group of freshman boys trying to go to their first high school party. Should have something in common with movies like Good Boys and Superbad. You know, at least something in common. We'll see how charismatic the kids in this actually are. The 29th adds a new series about Greek mythology and gods set in modern day that surprisingly stars Jeff Goldblum. It's titled Chaos. But on the 29th, they're adding Terminator Zero. This is a highly anticipated animated series based on the original Terminator movies. And I know there's been a lot of disappointing things made off the Terminator franchise over the past several decades, but these episodes were in part written by James Cameron. They look crazy promising. Timothy Olyphant actually voices the Terminator, and this show looks insanely promising. It's got a mature rating and just a stunning anime look to it. This is one I'm gonna be binge watching as soon as it drops. August 30th actually adds a new black horror movie, actually directed by Lee Daniels, who I don't think has ever done horror before.
Father, we ask that you cleanse and sanctify us for this deliverance. Ebony, get back.
In fact, he's most known for directing Precious and The Butler, but The Deliverance stars Monique and Glenn Close. It's about a black family that moves into this nice house and they start noticing some demonic occurrences happening. It'll be interesting to see if Lee Daniels is able to bring us something kind of sharp and interesting, or if this is just going to be kind of your standard horror flick. And then, like I said, on the 31st, they're adding Gangs of London, which is an insanely awesome show from AMC. This is actually written and directed by Gareth Evans. If that name doesn't sound familiar, he is the mind behind the Raid movies, The Raid and The Raid 2. And just like those movies, the action in Gangs of London is absolutely brutal. It's bone-breaking, it's raw. It's not as pervasive. This is not a martial arts series the way that the Raid movies were. It's about Gangs of London and feels very much like a Guy Ritchie thing mixed with the Raid, which I'm telling you is as awesome as it sounds. Here's everything leaving Netflix throughout the month of August. If you're new to the channel, welcome, but the date listed is the date it's gone, so make sure you watch it prior to that date. Thanks again to Factor for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check out their link in the video description, or just go to factor75.com. But I will keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this special Netflix episode, and you will see me on the next one.